Hello everybody, my name is Jackie and welcome to Prairie Sports Talk, the podcast where we talk about sports that directly impact the Canadian Prairie. Today is August 22nd, 2024, and we don't necessarily have a lot to talk about today, but what we do have to talk about, in my opinion, needs to be talked about. So, we're going to recap the weird week we just had in the CFL because it's the CFL. We only get weird weeks now, it seems like. And then we're going to talk about my predictions for this upcoming week in the CFL and why I think this will be a very, very chaotic week. Let's get into it. Week 11 in the CFL started off with a bang. Jeremiah Masoli played his first full game in nearly 3 years, and he has not missed a step. Masoli played amazing all game long. He went 27 for 35 for 254 yards and a touchdown. Not bad for somebody who could be on the back half of their career and is likely in the last couple seasons of their career. Not bad at all. Masoli looked like the Masoli we've come to expect. And it got to the point in this back and forth battle between Calgary and Ottawa where Masoli and the Red Blacks got the ball with just seconds left on the clock. Masoli orchestrates a drive to lead the Red Blacks down the field, and Lewis Ward walks it off with a game-winning field goal. It is the feel-good story of the season so far for just the whole league, honestly. And you gotta feel good for Masoli getting his first win in 3 years. Massive congratulations to the Red Blacks on getting not just an important win standings-wise, as it keeps them somewhat in contention with the Alouettes for first in the division, but just a massive moral victory for Masoli and the team as well. Calgary played really solid as well. Jake Mayo, though he didn't necessarily throw a touchdown, he still played well. He went 24 for 32 for 269. He played solid, at one point throwing a 50-yard bomb. It's not like, this isn't one of those games where Calgary should have won and they cost themselves. Don't get me wrong, Calgary should have won, but at least this time it wasn't their fault they lost. Everyone on Calgary played well all game long. Ottawa just wanted it slightly more. Very good game, honestly. And then we move on to the game I was at this season. An absolutely amazing game between the Montreal Alouettes and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Back and forth, all game long. Just for the command center to step in again. So, they called a very questionable pass interference. If you follow me on Twitter at all, that is Jackie Knobs, JACKYKNOBS, Jackie Knobs. If you follow me at all on Twitter, you saw me posting a lot about this. A lot of retweets about how the PI call was wrong and a lot of retweets about the other controversial call that came shortly after. So, a questionable PI call got Montreal way down the field on a late game drive, and then Davis Alexander scrambles out of the pocket. He comes around and he gets really, really close to the sidelines. And the refs say he stayed in. All the Rough Riders kind of stopped and looked at the refs like, hey, he's out of bounds. The command center reviews it because it is a scoring play, so they're automatically reviewed. And they ruled that he was in bounds, although many, many angles make it look like he touched the white stripe and should have been out of bounds. But the story of this game by far was Brett Lawver. Lawver has been one of the most consistent players in the CFL pretty much his entire time in the league. This is probably his worst career game. Brett Lawver went 3 for 7. That is not professional levels. He missed chip shots, he missed long field goals, he missed a lot. He missed 4 field goals for 12 points, as well as one of those field goals being returned the distance for a touchdown. In total, he cost the Rough Riders roughly 18 points in a game where the Rough Riders lost 27-24. This was a tight game, and if he makes even one of those field goals, the Rough Riders at least force overtime. If he makes two of those field goals, the Rough Riders probably win this game. Larvo, very understandably, was very hard on himself, and so was the CFL community. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been a bit hard on him myself as well. Larvo is a tremendous player. He has earned his name in Rough Rider history. Tremendous player. He has done so much good for the Riders, both on the field and off the field. He had a rough game though. There's no denying it. And almost any other position in professional football, if you cost your team 18 points, you're probably on the bus out of town next week. But as a kicker, there's not necessarily a lot of competition. Each team has their kicker set in stone, and that's not changing a lot. Occasionally you'll see teams pick up kickers in the off-season, but you don't see a lot of movement from them in the regular season. So I don't think Larvo's going anywhere anytime soon. But if he has another week like he just had, his job will be in serious jeopardy. Do not get me wrong, I love Larvo. He deserves to be in the Plaza of Honor one day for the Rough Riders. But he needs to be better than he was this past week. Just plain and simple. And then we move on to the Edmonton Elks and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And for the first time this season, McLeod Bether-Thompson has won a game where he started. Bether-Thompson looked solid. I don't want to say he looked great, but he looked solid. He went 15 for 23 for 234 and 2 touchdowns. He played decent. There's no denying that. But I think once Trey Ford is healthy, the Elks need to go back to him. I think Bether-Thompson can do a lot for Trey Ford. He can help teach the young Ford how to handle the pressures of being a professional athlete and constantly being in the spotlight as a quarterback. But I think once Ford is back, Bether-Thompson's time as a starter in the CFL could be up. But despite all that, the Elks looked really good. Like, scarily good. The Elks won 47-22, and their ground game was very diverse, and it was decently solid too. So, Justin Raskin had an insane 17 carries for 108 yards with an absolutely astounding 3 touchdowns. Raskin just kind of carried the Elks all game long. He played amazing. And the Elks receiving corps really helped Bether-Thompson to the solid game he had as well. Led by Eugene Lewis, who had 5 receptions for 93 yards. The Elks played really well this game. Granted, the Ticats are probably the worst team in the CFL, but I mean, it's still a big win for Edmonton because now they're starting to look like a legitimate threat in the league. I think right now, if there's 2 teams you don't want to run into, in the East, you don't want to run into Montreal. They only have 1 loss this season for a reason. They are the best team in the league, in my opinion. In the West, I'd say right now you don't want to run into the Elks. They are playing incredibly well. They have a lot of momentum. And since their coaching change, they have been a new team. Meanwhile, Hamilton ended up suffering a major loss. Taylor Powell ended up getting hurt very early in the game. And he could be out long term. It sounds like he has been put on the 6-game injured list. So that meant Bo Levi Mitchell, 1 week after losing his job as the starter, is now the man in Hamilton again. Bo Levi, he looked like the Bo Levi we've seen all season long. He went 23 for 34 for 294. Not bad. He added a touchdown, but here's the issue. He also threw 2 interceptions. For somebody who is one of the best quarterbacks in recent memory in the CFL, that's not something you see a lot. Bo Levi has been on a downward swing for a while now. And I've said it a lot, I'll say it again, it's time for him to retire after this season. And I hope he does. Because Bo Levi is a future Hall of Famer. He's a shoo-in. But this has just not been a good stretch of his career. This is going to be a forgettable stretch. And I just hope this doesn't tarnish his legacy. And then we move on to the game that had everybody around the CFL talking all week long. The BC Lions finally give us the return of Nathan Rourke against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the team that has made it to 4 consecutive Grey Cups. They have struggled a bit this season, but this was going to be a high-scoring match. Wait, what do you mean they only had 31 combined points? What do you mean BC only had 11? Yes, Winnipeg won this game 20-11. Zach Collaros played decent. He went 23 for 31. Brady Oliveira on the ground had 10 carries for 78 yards. A very diverse attack from the Bombers on offense. But for the Lions, the big story is Nathan Rourke did not look like the Rourke we saw a few years ago. He went 8 for 25, 126 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. This is not the Nathan Rourke we have come to expect. But I think he was rushed in. Rourke didn't even have a half week of practices with the Lions. He was just kind of thrown to the wolves, and Winnipeg made him pay all game long. I think Rourke is still going to return to his superstar ways very shortly, but he was put in way too soon this week. And now we move on to what is probably the most intriguing week of the season so far, both on the field and off the field. We open up the week with Saskatchewan visiting Toronto. The big story of this game should have been Corey Mace coaching against his former team for the first time since becoming a head coach. His return to Toronto. But unfortunately, something else has become the biggest story of the week. Chad Kelly will return for Toronto this week. I don't want to get too much into the allegations against him, and I don't want to really talk about all that in this video. If you guys want to hear my opinions on it, I will have a bonus video coming out later today, kind of talking about that. And I do have an episode from a few months back where I talked about the allegations and the suspension against Kelly as well. And CFL Twitter has just kind of been a mess because of Kelly returning. You've got one camp that thinks that Chad Kelly shouldn't be back in the CFL yet, and potentially a lot of them saying he shouldn't be back, period. And then you've got another camp saying that either Chad Kelly shouldn't have been punished in the first place, or some of them think he has the punishment fits what he did. Frankly, personally, I don't think he should be back yet. I think at very least he should have been gone all season long. But like I said, I will talk about that more in the video later today. Because I just want to focus on the on-field stories for the rest of this video. So, Saskatchewan traveling to Toronto this week. It's going to be a good game. You've got two teams that have had very up and down seasons this year. When Saskatchewan's been hot, they've been hot. And the same goes for Toronto. But when these teams have struggled, they have looked awful. Saskatchewan, yes, a lot of their losses have been in close games, but almost every single loss they've had this season isn't because the other team outplayed them, it's because they beat themselves. They saw a gun on the field and they shot themselves in the foot over and over and over again. But I still think Saskatchewan has the better team. I think Saskatchewan has one of the best rosters in the league. Yes, they're going to be missing a key piece in AJ Ouellette not playing this week and potentially being on the 6-game injured list. But I still think Saskatchewan's going to win this game. I feel like the return of Keon Schaefer-Baker is going to energize this already stellar receiving core. And Trevor Harris is going to throw for close to, if not more than 300 yards. And I think the Rough Riders are going to be even further motivated to beat the Argos because they're going to want to spoil Chad Kelly's homecoming this week. I think they will blitz a lot this week. And I feel like they're going to get a good amount of sacks. I feel like Saskatchewan wins this game with minimal issues. Yes, I think Toronto might have a few moments where it looks like they have all the momentum. But I feel like it's going to be more of the bend, don't break mentality of the Saskatchewan offense we have seen all season long so far. Where the defense may allow big plays from time to time. But they will do everything in their power to keep the offense out of the end zone. And if needed, they will score for themselves on the other team's offense. I think Saskatchewan wins this game. I think their offense has a very solid game, but I think their defense makes headlines this week and just has a stellar game. It will be a tight game, but I think Saskatchewan's defense will be more than enough to pull the Riders to a win here. And then we move on to what could be a major trap game. You have the red-hot Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who, yes, they struggled earlier in the season, and I ragged on them so much for the first few weeks of this season. But these last couple of weeks, they have gotten hot, and they have looked like the Bombers team that we have seen make it to the last 4 Grey Cups. And then you got the Ticats. Yeah, the team that has the worst record in the league. But I think the Ticats still have a chance in this game. I feel like Winnipeg could be going in very cocky. Like I said, they are a very hot team right now. And the Ticats have struggled at every turn this season. Except for that one game against the Elks where Bo Levi threw 5 touchdowns, but that was an anomaly this season. I think the Bombers win this game, but I think it's going to be very tight. I think this could end up being a 1-score game, potentially just a field goal may be the difference. I think Winnipeg wins this, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than it should be. And then we move on to my game of the week. You've got Nathan Rourke and the BC Lions visiting the Ottawa Redblacks with the returning Drew Brown. This is going to be a very fun game this week. Because now Nathan Rourke has had a full week of practice with the Lions. He's had time to relearn the playbook. And I think we're going to see Nathan Rourke look like the player that we saw a few seasons ago. But at the same time, I still think the Ottawa Redblacks are going to look like the team we have seen all season long. And they're going to play very, very solid this week. But with that said, I think Nathan Rourke leads the BC Lions to a win in Ottawa. I think they hand the Redblacks their first loss at home this season, but this is going to be a back and forth game. It is going to be a high scoring game with lots of passing yards for both Brown and Rourke, and I am absolutely excited for this game. I can't wait for it. And then we move on to what on paper a few weeks ago would have seemed like a very easy win for one team. But now it's looking like this could be a very interesting game. You've got the Edmonton Elks visiting the Montreal Alouettes. Now Trey Ford will still be out this week by the sounds of things. McLeod Bethel-Thompson will probably start. Cody Fajardo might be back this week. But even if he isn't, Davis Alexander is a very solid backup. He's played decently in relief of Fajardo. And I feel like the Alouettes, have no excuse to lose this game, honestly. Yes, the Elks have looked a lot better these last couple of weeks since their coaching change, but at the same time, this is the Alouettes that have literally lost 2 games in about a year now. That's it, just 2 games. I think the Alouettes win this by, it's going to be a very tight game and it's going to go down to the wire. I think it's going to come down to if a team can, whichever team has the ball last, can their quarterback lead them down the field for a game-winning drive. I think Montreal will win this game though. But that is everything I have for you guys in this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you're on Spotify, be sure to follow the 13th Man Podcast Network. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you guys have a great night. I hope you guys have a great whatever. And if you still want more Prairie Sports Talk, I uploaded a special on Tuesday talking about the Swift Current 57's chaotic season that they just finished. That will be linked in the description down below if you are interested. But regardless, stay safe, stay strong, you got this. And this is Jackie for Prairie Sports Talk, signing off.